The warrior, the king, the lover, and the magician. And if you really, really analyze every male in the world, they'll always fall under one of these categories. So what the hell do these categories mean in the first place? Well, if you're the king, you're somebody that loves governance. You want to build your empire to be the greatest empire in the world. You don't care about morality, you don't care about ethics, you don't care about any of that shit. If you're the lover, you don't care about the battles of men. You just kind of want to get by, you want to build relationships that you enjoy. If you're the magician, again, you don't necessarily have a morality, you don't care about any of that, but you'll be a truth seeker. Knowledge is the thing that you're always craving. And finally, the warrior. Basically, a warrior has a very strong identity of what's right and wrong, and they basically die trying to uphold what is right and what's wrong. So let's go with the actual examples of people. Let's start with Gandhi. Where do you think Gandhi would fall in the whole spectrum? Well, it's pretty obvious. The guy is a warrior because he had this idea of, non-violent protest or whatnot. And he basically stuck by it because he has such a sense of ethics on what's right that he literally starved himself for what he believed in. Me, I'd never do that. And again, if you're watching this, maybe you don't resonate with that at all. So let's go with another archetype. All right, so another archetype example, Donald Trump. Is he someone who's a warrior? No, because it's pretty obvious by the way he, caters to just his audience that he doesn't really give a fuck about what's right or wrong. But what does he care about? He cares about his empire. He wants to make the Trump family something of legacy, So that puts him at king. Now, let's go with magician. Look at Elon Musk. Elon Musk isn't concerned about creating an empire or building something that's gonna, impact others. What he really cares about is, finding the truth of how the world works. So, his whole way, climbing up these fucking mountains. This place is called Blue Mountain. There's the word mountain in it, and I'm thinking I should make a vlog talking while walking. All right, so Elon Musk, his whole perspective in life is to get to the bottom of how the fundamental nature of the universe works. And in doing so, he can save and help humanity. So the final archetype, the lover. What's a prominent example of that? Well, if you ever heard of this singer called Michael Jackson, what is he doing something that's morally right or morally wrong? No, he doesn't really give a fuck about that. Is he creating an empire where he's gonna topple everything? No, he doesn't care about that either. Yo, check this out. This is kind of cool. Whoa, that's real. Spiral. Oh, it's a zip line. Oh, there's a viewpoint here, so I'm gonna check that out. But going back to the topic on Michael Jackson, what makes him a lover and not a magician? Well, it's pretty evident. Maybe he did find some truths about how humans work, but at the core of it, he's not looking to, figure out the nature of the universe or anything like that. Look at this view, unreal. If you can't see it on the screen, it looks like it's flat, but this is really not flat. It's really, really deep. All right, so you might see some examples of these archetypes in the wild or whatnot, but basically there's two things at play here. This is specifically for males. I don't know necessarily if it works for all genders, but if you're a male, most likely you're gonna have parts of the lover, you're gonna have parts of the magician, you're gonna have parts of the king, and of course you'll also have parts of the warrior. Whatever part you most resonate with, the most dominant part, for me, again, what the hell is my most dominant part? I love knowledge. Like that's pretty much the whole journey of what I'm going through. To figure out how YouTube works, to figure out how women work, to figure out how the world works. And in doing so, that's how I create more and more of my identity. So you might also be someone that doesn't resonate at all with being a truth seeker. You don't really give a fuck about how the universe works or the nature of human beings or psychology, this and that. And conversely, you might be someone who's like, this is the only thing that matters. So depending on where you are on the spectrum almost, you can kind of identify whether you're someone who believes in an ethical version of the world, then you'd be a warrior. If you're somebody that believes in, not really ethics, but you believe in your own kingdom, your own brand, that's paramount. Like if you're someone very family oriented, then you'd be like a king of sorts. What's the main quality that lovers have?
They're in touch with their emotional self.
Okay. So if you're someone that's in tune with your emotions, you just kind of go with the flow. You really know how to read people. You like vibing with people. That's like your thing. Then most likely you resonate with a lover. And finally, if you're somebody that's like a bookworm, you want to figure out the nitty-gritty details of every single thing, then most likely you're the magician. One of the things I've been doing is making these videos about like this journey to become like almost a Casanova of sorts. But really, I'm approaching that not as a lover, I'm approaching that as a magician, because I'm trying to break it down to the actual granular level of what makes human interaction good. How do you vibe with a person? Why do you vibe with a person? And how do you connect with someone that, you can actually share a life with? So all those things. So even though like on the surface it looks like maybe you're trying to, figure out the lover part of you, but really the way you approach it is what's more important. So in my case, almost taking a nerdy, like bookworm type approach to this whole thing tells me clearly that even though there's qualities of the lover that I need to embody in order to be successful in this category, I'm still approaching it in the frame of a magician. All right, so this book, it goes further into exactly what you need to be as a man in order to succeed. And what this book suggests is whatever your archetype is, you have to fully embody that archetype. You can't just, oh, by the way, we're about to hit some caves. Check this out. To caves and caverns. Apparently, these are supposed to be really scenic little caves, I guess. I don't know, what the fuck. I didn't even know Ontario had caves. So this is like a first to me. So there's like a lineup for the caves. We're just waiting on that. Alright, so going back to the topic. How do you even embody your archetype if you don't know what your archetype is? Well, that's where the analysis part comes in. You have to analyze who you are. Who are you really? Like when my buddy was explaining each of the categories, in my head I'm like, I'm obviously the lover and a king. That's who the fuck I am. However, I didn't really resonate with those personalities. So when it got to magician, I'm like, this is literally what I've done my whole life. I've always viewed the world as this thing to solve. This universe is like something that's like a very logical system, and you can kind of break it down to the smallest parts and actually figure out how the whole works based on that. So I didn't know I was doing this, but the fact that I was doing it is telling me that maybe that's the personality type that's most dominant within me. All right. So why is it important to identify what your archetype is? Because at the end of the day, these are things that, like I said, I didn't even know this description. I didn't even know there's 4 archetypes for the male in the human species. And yet, here we are. I'm resonating with one personality type over the others. It's because whoever this guy or this author is, he actually did figure it out to a degree. We're all going to fall under one of these 4 personality traits. It's almost like a personality test, but it's not, because there's more implications to it. What is that, a real cave? Bruh. Damn, son. Alright, we'll just check out the cave.
This is 100% a cave.
Yo, there is a cave, by the way, where these guys are.
Most definitely a cave.
We're gonna go through this thing called Fat Man's Misery. And why is it called Fat Man's Misery? Because apparently, let me give you a good view of this. The narrow spot is 36 centimeters wide.
Sorry, guys.
Go ahead, man.
There's no exit?
Oh, you gotta go around. You go right through or you go around?
Oh, okay. So what is this?
So I don't know what my waist length is, but I can tell you it's probably not, whatchamacallit, it's probably not 36 centimeters, maybe it's like 50 centimeters. I don't know what the fuck my waistline is, but we finna try this out now. We're part of the fat man's agony where apparently it's supposed to be really, really tight. So let's try this out real quick. Oh, what the fuck? Put right shoulder, they have instructions. Put right shoulder first through opening. Proceed with body sidewards towards exit. Wait, what the fuck? This is the spot? How the fuck are you supposed to get? Are you for real?
Did you go through?
This is my hand, by the way. One hand. How the fuck is anyone supposed to go through this? Alright, so we decided, so we're just gonna walk up because it is indeed 14 centimeters. And I found out that I am actually more than 14 centimeters wide. So back on the topic of archetypes. The more you figure out things about yourself, like again, this might just be the magician in me talking, but the more you figure out about these details of the world and how human beings and people operate, the more, I mean, in my case, competence brings confidence, right? So you can walk around the world with a more better understanding of how everyone operates. Another thing you're gonna notice is that maybe you resonate a bit with a certain archetype and you resonate a bit with another archetype. What this guy, this author, again, I don't know what the name is, but I'm gonna put it in the description below. This guy figured out one of the most fundamental truths, which is that you might resonate with the other 3 archetypes, but you will always have a dominant archetype. And it serves you the best if you figure out what your archetype is. Because if you don't know who you are, then how the hell are you going to operate in the world? So we basically got out of the caves. You can see it. We're on top of the caves right now. You can barely get a view, but I was walking just down there. So let's go back to the topic of what's happening here. I'm always talking about, you know, sim to pimp, this and that, all that stuff. But if I'm approaching it as a magician and I'm not necessarily connecting with people, I'm not really getting to know a girl, then how the fuck can I expect the results that come from having a connection? So it's funny because like in all my relationships that I've had in my life, I built a really strong connection with a lot of rapport and a lot of commonalities, which, you know, it prospered when it did. And I don't do that anymore. So that's one of the things that I have to kind of understand, which is that it's not really about heartbreak. What it really is it's kind of being in tune with some of your vulnerabilities. And mostly it's about being chill. Because if you really understand that the world, maybe because I see it through the magician lens, so I have to solve everything. Maybe instead of trying to fucking solve everything, if I was just like, all right, let me see it from someone else's perspective and try to get to know where she's coming from, then maybe my results would be different. So that's the self-analysis that I took from this. And maybe you'll have a different epiphany, depending on what your goals and journeys are in life. Anyway, my battery's almost dying, so I'm gonna end off this video. Hope you learned something. I'm gonna leave a bunch of description stuff below explaining like more of my thoughts on this book. Anyway, peace.